Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live post-game reaction show. The Toronto Maple Leafs have just left the ice. 4-2 victors down in Ottawa. They are moving on to the second round. My name is Kyle Andrew. I am joined once again by NHL analyst Mr. Pierre McGuire. We are on the Toronto Sports Rush Network, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Pierre, the Toronto Maple Leafs are advancing to round two.
What an amazing accomplishment by the Leafs. I respect what Ottawa did. I respect the way they battled. They competed. Their fans were amazing. But this was all Toronto all the time. They got a 2-0 lead. They lost that lead. They maintained their composure. They didn't panic when they had some penalty kills, especially in the third period when they had a big penalty kill. But the biggest thing was Max Pacioretty, called for duty, comes up huge. After having some bumbles and fumbles in that game, he came up with a masterful moment for the Toronto Maple Leafs and their faithful.
Came at the end of a very good shift. Domi was digging. Domi got him the puck. Scored the game-winning goal in a game in which the Leafs, they did enough. They played that was a tough building to go in. We didn't see their best game of the series tonight, but we saw a game that got it done in a very tough, very loud, very impressive crowd in Ottawa tonight. The Stars came out to play.
I'm so glad you said that, Kyle, because the truth of the matter is there were lots of questions after game number 5 about the quote-unquote core four. Would they show up? Would they compete? Willie Nylander showed up and competed. Mitchell Marner showed up and competed. John Tavares showed up and competed. And I would tell you right now, Austin Matthews showed up and competed. But the unsung hero in this game, I thought there were a couple of them. One was Matthew Nyes. His effort level was tremendous. And the other one was Bobby McMann. Effort level, tremendous. It doesn't equate to points with those guys. It comes down to heart, soul, and desire. And because of the heart, the soul, and the desire of those two players in particular, their line mates kind of fed off the energy that they provided. And I thought the core four were tremendously good, but I thought the grunts, the hard workers, those guys really competed well.
Yeah, I think top to bottom, what we saw from the Leafs tonight was another one of those four-line performances. And just they just came off clearly their worst game of the series. They were flat, they were slow, they were not aggressive, and they were beaten to the puck constantly. And we've talked about this after almost every game this year. Can Berube pull them back to center? He's there to make them calm, and they played with purpose tonight. They were aggressive on the penalty kill. It was unfortunate that they had scored that second goal off of Stolars's back there because they had just finished another masterful penalty kill, but they got them back on track and they did everything they needed to do to win a big road game tonight.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall on the bench after the David Perron goal off the nameplate of Anthony Stolars. I would have loved to hear either there was a whole lot of, I can't believe we're going through this again, or don't worry, boys, we got this one. We're okay. Everything's under control. I'm going to bet, Kyle, it was probably more like the second than it was the first, and that there was a level of composure and maturity and understanding of the moment, because it wasn't long after that Domi went to work, Pacioretty went to work, and they were bumping, they were grinding, they were getting pucks to the net, and eventually Max found the back of the net.
Yeah, they scored their third goal inside of 2 minutes after that bad goal. And again, if Berube calmed them down, as you suggest he probably did, you know, you just kind of throw your hands up and go, shit happens. It just does. It's just a bad goal. It was a well-placed shot, a carom. It just is what it is on a goaltender who's not been giving up those types of goals. It's not, he had no chance on the first goal tonight. Maybe he was slightly forward, slightly out of position on the second goal. It just is what it is. They rallied, they played well, and they're now 2-13 in series clinching games since 2018. Listen, Pierre, I'm hoping I'm still alive when they get back to 500 in that department, but for now, they got it done. And anyone that expected this series to be a sweep was delusional in the first place. Maybe it didn't need to go 6. They were flat last game, but they looked pretty good tonight. And now they're on heading back home to welcome a Florida Panthers team in any number of nights. The schedule is yet to be released.
Right. Well, the one thing that I like for Toronto is they did expend a lot of energy. I'm not sure they got a lot of guys hurt, which is good news for them. And because when you're going to play Florida, they turn every single shift into a street fight. So for Toronto, it's going to be a little bit of a different game. Yes, they got a little bit more prepared to play a team like Florida because of the way Ottawa plays. But what I like is look at the hit totals for both teams. 43-56. That speaks to my point. That leads to Toronto being battle tested and ready for a Florida team that likes to play that way. But also look at the faceoff stats, Cal. 60-40 in favor of Toronto. That's huge when you play a team like Florida. because you need puck possession to take their vicious forecheck out of the game. If you can control forecheck against them, your chances of winning are a ton better than if you don't. And by winning faceoffs, you can eliminate big portions of that forecheck.
Watching the last game of the Leafs that they had lost there and having watched so much of the Florida Tampa series, by no means did I think they could be effective against this Panthers team. The way the Panthers were playing so rough, but there was a moment in the first period tonight where Ottawa was coming down the ice, down the right side, moving the puck up, advancing it, and the Leafs delivered 3 successive hits at the blue line, the red line, and the blue line to pin them on the wall and push them off the puck. And there was something about the way that shift, it was very early in the game, very aggressive. That was the style of hockey to me that signals they can take this Florida Panthers team out.
They can. I think the biggest thing for them is not to get caught up in the post whistle scrums. If you get involved in those, that's going to be a big problem for your team. So you got to play smart. You got to stay out of the box. But if you get involved, like if Marner or Matthews or Tavares gets involved in post whistle scrums, it's going to be a problem. That's exactly what Florida wants you to do. That's got to be a big major part of their game plan going in to game number 1, whenever it might be. But the other part for Toronto, they played 82 games to get ready, battle tested to play these kinds of games. I thought they were much better this year than they were last year, getting ready for those kinds of games. And we saw good portions of it. They had to go into overtime against this team. They won. They got tied up at 2 after having a 2-0 lead in a deciding game. They found a way to win. Mentally tough, physically tough, and focusedly tough. That's what you have to win in the playoffs. I think Berube's prepared this team for that kind of a series.
Yeah, and I think it's actually better for them that they did experience just a little bit of adversity in this first round, a little bit of a scare. A 4-0 sweep might not have prepared them. A 4-1, probably the same. But this going 6 against an Ottawa team that absolutely played brilliantly, played to the best of their ability, and they're on the come up for sure, is probably a better battle test going into Florida. We have to single out the birthday boy, who damn near didn't play tonight for the weirdest, strangest reason. Do you want to explain that situation that happened pregame?
Well, because his brother's part of the Leaf organization, so they
Yeah.
thought Alex Nylander was playing for Toronto and not Willie Nylander. And they actually had Willie as a healthy scratch. And somebody, one of the off-ice officials, had to catch that. And they're allowed to do that by Rule 5.1. They're allowed to do that and tell Toronto, hey, just so you know, you got a problem with your roster that's been submitted. And eventually it was caught, it was fixed, and everything was above board.
Yeah, that's we've said it on the show a million times, Fair. You have to turn off the autofill on your Google documents because you just never know if it's putting in the right Nylander. On his birthday of all things too, he received some very justified criticism after the last game, and he came out tonight on his birthday, nearly scratched out of the roster, scored 2 goals, including the clincher, the empty net goal there at the end after being tripped up. Penalty was on the way regardless, but good of him to finish.
I like the first goal though. I like the first goal because there's no hesitation. You know, he came down, he showed that he was composed, he knew what he was going to do with it. That was a rifle shot. That was a Willie Nylander goal. Yeah, 100%. That was a Willie Nylander. I couldn't agree more, Kyle.
Yeah, he was just, again, you know, it wasn't a core 4 game. The core 4 played well, but it was not about them. This was about the complete top to bottom roster of the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is clearly their greatest strength this time of the year. So as you say, it doesn't appear as though anyone was hurt. They had some overtime games, but none of them went too long. They should have good legs. Pierre LeBrun has already put out that the schedule, there's so many scenarios in play. It depends on what happens with the West. This next series could start Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. There's just too much up in the air right now to call it.
Yeah. Well, because of game 7s, they don't want a second round series to intrude on a game 7. So a lot comes down to what happens tomorrow night, St. Louis versus Winnipeg in St. Louis. St. Louis wins that game. Obviously game 7 will be on Sunday night. So they're not going to start series before that on either side, I don't believe. So I think Monday will probably be that. The East, is, as you correctly say, has been decided, which is really interesting. We're going to have 2 major battles in the East, Florida and Toronto, Carolina and Washington. Think about it for a second. I mean, those are 2 very ferocious series. And it'll be interesting to see how long they go. My concern for Carolina against Florida is or against Washington, can the goaltending hold up? And my concern for Toronto against Florida is, can they stay out of those post-whistle scrums? Because I think if they play 5-on-5, they will dictate the terms for good portions of that series.
Absolutely. That's It's really they know they're in for a rough battle against Florida. Literally, the definition, the slobber knockers, what these are going to be. But can they play a clean, rough game and not retaliate after the whistle and the scrums?
Yeah.
Because Florida is so good at drawing those minutes out of guys after the fact because they play such a frustrating forecheck, such a frustrating brand of hockey that it's going to be a test of the Leafs' patience and will. Again, the Berube factor is going to play a huge role in this series.
It will. I agree with that. And also now they've already beaten one Kachuk. Now they got to go and beat the
Right?
other Kachuk.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an interesting part of it too. Austin Matthews, clearly Team USA teammate with Brady and also with Matthews. So Austin's going to get a heavy dose of chirping. I don't think it's a foreign concept for him. Getting to Austin, by the way,
Yeah.
I don't think he's 100%. But man, oh man, he was so efficient tonight in his own zone, face-offs in particular. He was outstanding in face-off play. And I thought he wanted the puck at his stick. There was one sequence in the third period, Kyle. I thought he was so good. He was on the forecheck. He forced a turnover. He dominated the puck. He made a couple sweet passes. And then he was right back on the back check. I thought it was just such an efficient shift. And if he can play like that in the next series, even though I don't think he's 100%, that's huge for Toronto. That's mammoth.
It really is. And I mean, he's not on the scoreboard with the G's, just getting the apples. And like the goal tonight was very, very big, but it's very important to take a step back and see that just because he's not on the score sheet the way everyone thinks he should be, he's
Mhm.
playing such a great 200-foot game right now. And a lot of guys that score 69, 70 goals in the season don't have the two-way skills, but he has been valuable as a captain. And I wish, he's not the only person that's not been on the score sheet. He's playing well, and if he's playing hurt, he's playing very well. And it appears as though something may be wrong, and he's gritting through it. Like, what else do you want the guy to do at this point? You
You
know,
know what
he,
else I
he
think he's you know what else I think he's doing? He's helping be a role model for Matthew
yes,
Nyes. And Matthews, we were talking about it before, Kyle and I. Nyes has been tremendous. I mean, he was outstanding again tonight. Bobby McMahon was great. The influence that he's had as a captain on this team has been pretty substantial. He's one of those players. I know people want him to score. I totally understand it, but he doesn't have to score to influence the outcome of a game. He can do
no,
that in so many ways. Face-off plays. We saw it in the Simon Benoit overtime winner in Ottawa not that long ago. Defensive stops. He's been outstanding with defensive stops. And the biggest thing to me is his creativity as a playmaker. So he can
yes.
do all these things that most guys, to your point, Kyle, can't do when they get those monster point totals because he can't play defense. He can't win faceoffs. This guy can do that.
Yeah, he's gonna have people blank. Like if you think he was held, he might not score in the next series and he could be effective. Florida is going to blanket him, and he is developed a game now that there's just more to it than that. Drawing attention, if you put two guys on him and draw too much attention, you're in big trouble because the rest of that line is deadly. You certainly can't do that anywhere near a power play because you're down a guy. He's if Florida can't stay out of the box, they'll be in big trouble against this Leafs team.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. The other part of it is I didn't think Stolars was overmatched at any point in this series. I did not think he was overmatched. Now, goalies don't play against each other, even though one's at one end, one's at the other. Bobrovsky's a different deal than Linus Olmark. He is. Bobrovsky's just a different deal. But Stolars, I thought time-wise, he made some spectacular saves at key times in this game. There was one in particular, point shot in the third period, game was tied. Brady Tkachuk had a chance to tip that puck.
Yeah.
He made a great left pad save. Stolars did. If he doesn't make that save, we might not be having this friendly discussion like we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Karam goal went in off him. That's going to happen to every goalie in the league. And the other goal, he didn't let his save percentage is not reflective in this series of how good he actually was because he didn't face that many shots compared to what he normally did throughout the season. But the shots that he faced often, he was keeping the game low scoring and just delivering a component for the Leafs that they just haven't really had in the past at this time of year.
That's fair. That's really fair. And I think going against his old team, the Florida
Yeah,
Panthers, there's going to be something to prove,
sure.
and I know how much he respects Bobrovsky. And I think we all know that Bobrovsky helped him a lot in terms of being better as a professional. That says a lot about Sergei Bobrovsky, but it also says a lot about Anthony Stolars and his ability to want to compete, not quit on his dream. And now he's got the ultimate opportunity to beat the team that he was part of the Stanley Cup with a year later. I think it's a fantastic storyline. It's a great script. You'd be better at it than I would, but I would just say this. The biggest thing about this next series is going to be about discipline. We always say that going into a series. In this series, more than ever, discipline's going to matter a ton. A ton.
It really, really is. Florida, they played there's suspensions and match penalties, and but it worked. You know what I mean? The rough style they brought to the game, like they're dropping forearm shivers Tito Santana would have been proud of in that first round. And it's we might be the only people watching or involved in the show that catch that reference.
Tito Santana,
but like they played right up to the edge, I would say, to the point where it wasn't quite to their detriment. I don't know if they'll go that far with the Leafs, but even just the addition of the old Maple Leafs nemesis and Brad Marchand, like it from a storyline perspective, if you can't get into this series, if you can't love this brand of hockey, this is going to be a great series of hockey. No fandom involved with that sentence.
Here's a question I have for you, and it's just a question, not a statement. I know how passionate the fans are in Florida. Now it's taken some time for them to get this passion level, obviously, because they haven't had this much success. The last 3 years have dictated a lot of their success. When I was coaching in the league, my first ever win was in Old Miami Arena. And I would tell you, those fans had passion in that building. They were on top of you. This is a different experience when you go to the game in Sunrise. The building's bigger. Back in the regular season, there's not as many people in the building. There will be. Here's my question for you, Cal. Can the Leaf fans match the intensity of the Florida Panther fans?
Well, Pierre, I'm happy you brought that up because I don't know if you know, I have some thoughts on the Toronto Maple Leaf fan base. And I want to go back to what we heard in Ottawa tonight. They were chanting in the first period. They were chanting in the second. They were chanting Stellar's name after that bad second goal. They were doing everything they could to be the sixth man in game after game in Toronto. I can't stress it enough. And I know that this team has the storyline behind them, the history of failure when it matters most and whatnot. The inability of the fan base to turn the page on that and just get behind their guys makes me sick to my stomach. If you look at those 5,000 people that sometimes gather outside the arena, if only that energy could be led inside to those lower bowl platinum seats where they need this. They're young men playing a sport at the highest level against defending Stanley Cup champions. The fan base got such a treat this season. New coach, full four lines, excellent hockey, never long bad losing streaks. Pay them back in round two. If you're seeing this, please just support your guys. It's almost embarrassing because we look around Carolina, Washington, they're going to be incredible buildings, both of them. All these teams advancing right now, what do they have in their corner? Incredible home ice advantage. And the Leafs need more than simply last line change.
No, I think that's fair. And obviously the series are going to start in Toronto. If you can get an edge on Florida early, I think it matters a lot. The crowd can help. There's no question about it. I think it'd be shocking for the Florida players to come to Toronto and experience a robust and maybe a little bit nasty crowd. But I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Because I know what the treatment's going to be like when the Toronto Maple Leafs get to Sunrise, Florida and have to play Florida down there. But this is a great opportunity, especially if the Leafs don't have to play till Monday. Today's Thursday, so you get Friday's an off day if in fact it goes to Monday. Saturday be a practice and prep. Sunday be a medium practice. Get ready, and then you're in the series. You're right in the series Monday, but you get a little bonus time now. It's not going to be as quick a turnaround, I don't believe, because I do think there'll be some game sevens. I do believe there'll be some game sevens.
Yeah, and to illustrate all the points we're making right now, the early odds up on Bet Rivers right now, this is damn near a pick'em of a series right now. The Leafs minus 110, the Panthers minus 134. It doesn't get much closer than that. And remember, this is a Toronto Maple Leafs team that's currently favored against the defending Stanley Cup champions that disposed of the Tampa Bay Lightning very efficiently in the first round. That is an incredible statement of faith in the strength of this hockey team.
I got to be honest, I was really disappointed in Tampa. I picked Tampa to beat Florida. I really did. I thought the Florida Panthers were better. I thought their goaltender Bobrovsky was better. I thought their coaching was better. I thought they were better prepared, and they were way more physical than Tampa. They were way more disciplined. So this Florida team, they surprised me. I didn't know how much they'd have left in the tank. I really did not, especially when you consider Brandon Montour is playing in Seattle. Well, they're not playing anymore. Oliver Ekman-Larsson's playing in Toronto, and they are still playing right now.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of roster. Aaron Ekblad didn't play for a good portion of the last 20 games and the first two of the playoffs, and he's just been suspended again. So they've had some roster turmoil there. They have. And I didn't think they'd be able to, replicate what they did the previous 2 years, but they've been able to do it so far. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, I thought they were maybe a little bit banged up going into this year, and I just, they've been so deep in the playoffs so much lately. How long can they keep doing it? I thought they would beat Tampa Bay because for no logical reason beyond it just seems like the Leafs in Florida have been on this collision course for the last couple of months. And you point out Aaron Ekblad, who's going to be the most well-rested player in the history of he's played 2 games in the last 2 months. So he's going to be a well-rested guy going out there. It's hard to separate a desire for the Leafs to win from we're going to get a high level of hockey in this series. And as a fan of the game, you have to be looking forward to both of these series in the East going into the second round. We've been treated to great playoff action so far. And it's funny too, because the Leafs fans, I'm not even sure if they know how to cheer at the end of these series anymore, so much as they do this collective exhale, just holding their breath for the last 4 days.
Yeah, no, Leaf fans too are questioning the trade deadline acquisitions. I thought Lawton did some really good things in the game tonight, but Brandon Carlos made a massive difference. He had an unbelievable opportunity to score in the second period. He wasn't able to finish it off, but his defensive awareness, his penalty killing, he'd been really good, and he's helped Morgan Riley a ton. That acquisition has been very good for playoff hockey. Really has been.
It really has, and the jury has kind of been out on some of those moves until recently, but it's whatever they saw has all come to fruition because none of those guys have become a detriment to the team, and at least one of them, as you state, is a massive positive, a massive upgrade for them, and it really complete. They don't have a hole. When they're playing at full flight, they have 4 forward lines and 3 defensive lines that you'd be pretty comfortable having on the ice at any point.
You know what I
So
also like too? I got to tell you, Kyle, they have roster flexibility. You can have Domi playing in the 3-hole in one sequence, and you can put him on the second line as a left winger, or the first line as a right winger, if you want more physicality for Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes, and you take Marner and put him somewhere else. You can take Pacioretty and start him on the second line, move him down to the fourth line. Doesn't matter. I mean, this team has roster flexibility, unlike very many teams in the league, which is obviously really important. And the biggest thing when I see that, the coach Berube knows how to use it. He does.
he really, really does. I wasn't sure what they were getting from him. You would have known better than I going into the season, but I was pretty confident. But he has been a masterful game manager this season. And again, the thing he did tonight where he turned them around after a poor performance, that's not something they've had in the past.
No, I just like the composure. I know how intense he is, believe me. He can get a little heated down. But I'm willing to bet money, and I haven't talked to any players after the game. Obviously, I'm talking to Kyle. I would say that after it was 2-2, he probably said to the fellas, okay, just calm down. We played a good game. Let's just take it to him. We got about 6.5 minutes to go. Let's finish this thing off. And it's something along those lines. I bet you he wasn't panicking. I'll bet he was real calm and quiet.
So at the start of the season, once the Leafs team started taking shape and we saw how good and complete of a roster they were, and we saw how they've responded to the coaching change, I had it in my head that for this season to be considered successful, they needed to get to the conference finals. They needed to get one step. I are they in contention for a Stanley Cup? Absolutely they are. I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying in order to classify, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do they need to beat this Florida Panthers team for everyone to just go, okay, well, we got a round further this year? If they lose to this team, there's no shame in losing to the defending Stanley Cup champions that are playing as well as they are right now and are going to come in on a few days rest and all of those things. But a conference finals would say a lot towards, they got some free agents they got to look after now and stuff like that. And what are we doing with this roster? If they can't get out of the second round, is it time to switch things up, or would it be successful enough to lose this second round in 7?
I don't know about switch things up, but here's what I would say. I think there is some serious pressure on them to go past the second round. I think they're almost mandated to do that. It's been, what you got to start looking at is a clock ticking on guys' careers. Austin didn't just come in the league. Willie didn't just come in the league. Mitchell didn't just come in the league. A lot of the other guys, Domi didn't just come into the league.
No.
Steve Lorentz didn't just come in the league. So you look at it, Calle Yarncroke definitely didn't just come in the league. So they got older guys, and they don't have a lot coming through. Their farm team got knocked out in the first round of the American Hockey League playoffs. I know their protected list pretty well. It's got some good players, but not super elite, because they've used a lot of those players or draft picks to make their team what it is today. So I would say, and not trying to be mean, I would say that if they didn't get past Florida, this would be a disappointing season.
I'm with you on that too, and it's not. I'm not saying they should get past this Florida team, because this is a very, very good Florida team. They are the defending Stanley Cup champions.
Yep.
But from what we've seen this year, they need to.
I agree.
Because I think they match up better with both Washington and Carolina than they do with Florida. I think Florida is one of the toughest. You know what? I shouldn't even say that. They're 3 teams that are all a tough fight. But the Florida Panthers play the Leafs very well. And, to see either Carolina or Washington, I think that would be a winnable conference series for them.
I think this is as tough as you're going to get. The Florida Panthers are going to be as tough as any team you're going to play. And I will tell you straight up, I have the Leafs going to the Stanley Cup final.
You had them against Colorado.
I had that before the playoffs started. I'm sticking with that. I'm not going to tell you if they're going to win or not, but I have them going to the final.
Well, you had them against, was it Colorado?
I did.
Colorado has just gone up 1-0 at 10 minutes left
in
the first period tonight.
Yes,
and Vegas is up 3-2 on Minnesota with 1 minute left in the third. So that series looking to be closed out tonight as well. So you're the Leafs. You head back home now, which is a great thing, because it's a very short trip home. They'll be home soon, actually. And
I'm going to say they'll be in their beds if they choose to be by 1 o'clock in the morning, which is pretty good.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. Although, I guess celebrations would be put on ice until they know when they're playing next. Because if it's Monday, you could have a couple of pops with the lads. But if it's Saturday, you're right back to business tomorrow morning.
Yeah, no, the pop stuff kind of went away in my era. We used to do that, but not these guys don't do the same stuff anymore. We would have, back in the day, very seldom did you charter out after a game. Unless it was a back-to-back, you stayed overnight. So it's a lot different than what it used to be. It is a lot different.
Yeah, they're straight to the nutritionists and their PS5s and drinking protein shakes and taking magnesium.
Deep tissue massage,
deep tissue massage, ice bath.
They got it all working.
These boring kids these days. But it's just, okay, so we're thrilled because we get to keep doing these shows now. We keep getting talking. We get to keep talking about this hockey team for a little while longer. And people watching this show right now can participate in that by liking and subscribing. Like this video, leave us a comment. We have someone in the chat right now actually asking if we think the Leafs will start walling game 1.
I would say no, I don't think they will.
No, I don't think they will either. I think all systems are lined up exactly as they need to be. But again, what a gift to have him on the bench. Like a truly stalwart backup goaltender. But they're heading back home. They've got home ice advantage. Hopefully the crowd puts that to good use. But the city's going to be amped up now because they still won that series in 6. The game 4 loss was no big deal. Game 5, they looked bad. And that's when the Twitter was fun. I have to be honest with you. To watch people get themselves worked up was a lot of fun. But the big sigh of relief comes now. And now they're in the thick of it. And I'm absolutely pumped to keep working these shows, keep seeing what happens in these games. I mean, I joked with EJ the other night that the Florida series, there was 3 homicides in round 1. It was an absolutely crazy rough brand of hockey. And if that can't get the fans on their feet in the Scotiabank Arena, I don't know what will. But
there'll be some villains for them to cheer against. There's no question. There'll be some serious villains for them to cheer against.
That's literally Florida's game plan. There can't not be. It's so exciting to anticipate. But Pierre, I'm looking forward to doing these shows with you. I hope this run continues. I hope they go deep in the playoffs and start exercising some of those demons, because frankly, I think a lot of us around hockey are sick of hearing about it.
Yeah, and I wasn't ready for this to end anyways. I'm having so much fun doing
Yeah.
it. So thank you, Kyle. It's been a
Yeah.
ton of fun.
Well, folks, as soon as we know the schedule, you'll know our schedule. As of right now, round 2 against the Florida Panthers could start Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Whenever it starts, we will be here post-game on the Toronto Sports Rush Network, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Once again, like this video, leave a comment for us. I'll respond to them tomorrow. Subscribe to the channel, most importantly, but look forward to us after each game in round 2 as well. My name is Kyle Andrew. I was joined once again by Mr. Pierre McGuire tonight. Thanks for watching.